as I've moved across North America and lived in different areas, seeing for myself the power of sport to help me belong to a community. And then seeing that as we progressed over those 25 years and we really hadn't addressed the barriers. So significant barriers were still in place. And so for me, as a woman who finds sport my happy place, and as a mother of 2 daughters who love sport, for me, it was about, okay, I need to be a part of this solution. I need to be able to leverage the skills and the strengths and the passions that I have to make change, to be the catalyst to go, okay, enough's enough. Let's make things happen.
From Six Story, I'm your producer, Diana Hong, and you're listening to Rev Up Your Potential with Hilda Gann, the show where we talk with entrepreneurs in Toronto about the stories behind their success and the lessons they've learned along the way. And now your host, Hilda Gann.
Hilda Gann, Rev Up Your Potential, the podcast about entrepreneurs and the successes and the challenges that they've had in their journey. Today, I'm excited. I have Caroline Wiley and Tina Finelli. They are the co-founders of SeeWhatSheCanDo Conversations. Thanks for coming today, Caroline and Tina.
Thanks for having us, Hilda.
It's great to be here.
A delight. For those of you who don't know Tina and Caroline, you are in for a treat. These are women who recognize the power of support of sports and are encouraging women to continue building their own confidence through sport and helping others recognize the power of sports for women. So Caroline and Tina, tell us a little bit more about your company.
Well, thank you very much for having us, Hilda. It's wonderful to be here. See What She Can Do is an inspirational community where women, active women, can find resources, the stories, and the local businesses to help them get moving and be their best active self. So we're really excited to be able to create a one-of-a-kind community online and connecting women together so that they really can live their best lives.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that building of a community, just in more detail so people just understand a little bit?
Sure. It's really about helping women find the things to do. We share stories and we help women share their own stories around their participation in sport. We also want to help women find all the different things that women can do. So we cover 67 different sports. And really it's about helping women find everything in their community that allows them to get their bodies moving. So whether it's dance or whether it's softball, we really want to be able to put the power of sport at their fingertips.
The other piece around it is finding the activity that you like to do, whether it is an organized sport or one where you're walking outdoors or taking a hike or even just playing with your kids outside. It's also about finding the people in your community and your community resources. So we've got some new initiatives that we can share a little later on that actually help people come together for a reason, especially now during, this pandemic. People are feeling lonely, they're feeling isolated, they're feeling disconnected from their own sport organizations or community organizations. So we've got some really unique ways to bring people together while they're apart so that we can kind of fill that loneliness gap and inspire them to, be happy and do their thing.
I know you're sharing about the awareness piece and motivating people, women, to be using sport. And sport in the loosest terms isn't just organized sports. It's just getting out and exercising. But there's also an advocacy piece, correct?
There is, in the sense that it's really about helping people hear the message around the advocacy. So we're really trying to curate all the great things that are happening in the world of advocacy and really putting action to that advocacy. For a lot of great organizations, it's been about building awareness around the challenges and the barriers that women face to enter the world of sport and then really have a sense of belonging in it. And so for us, we wanted to take the next step and really help women be actionable on those empowerment messages that they've been hearing. So for us, it's about giving women the tools to be able to not only be inspired, but act on that inspiration. I think that's an important part of why we created See What She Can Do.
Yeah. Around advocacy, some of the barriers that Caroline spoke to, girls that, in their teen years are dropping out of sport at 3 times the rate of their male counterparts. We know that athleticism transcends sport. I mean, I know you know this too, Hilda, with your work in human resources. It helps people in the boardroom. It helps people build confidence and leadership skills. And if a small portion of our population or a big portion of our population are missing out on that, they're missing out on the benefits of sport. So our advocacy really is to break down those barriers, show more representation of women of all cultures, of all shapes and sizes, of all beliefs, of all communities, so that they have opportunities in life that extend well beyond sport itself.
Yeah, that's such a powerful thing. And I wanted to make sure people understood the advocacy piece. It's not just a forum to say, hey, you want to get moving? Here's where you can come to learn and do more. It is making that awareness. And as you said, a lot of young females in their early years are kind of not encouraged to take sport. And that's such an asset to have sport or movement in your life because of the very things. So I want to ask you to, what made you decide to do this? You've told us what you do. Why did you decide to start this?
So I've come out of the sport and recreation world as a professional. I've done a graduate degree in recreation and leisure studies that looked at what makes women do the sports they do and the activities. And that was about 25 years ago. And so much of the literature really emphasized the barriers that women face. And the significant barriers, whether it's, not seeing themselves on the pages of the sports page, not having the opportunities, not seeing the investment. And for me, as I've moved across North America and lived in different areas, seeing for myself the power of sport to help me belong to a community. And then seeing that as we progressed over those 25 years and we really hadn't addressed the barriers. So significant barriers were still in place. And so for me, as a woman who finds sport my happy place, and as a mother of 2 daughters who love sport, for me, it was about, okay, I need to be a part of this solution. I need to be able to leverage the skills and the strengths and the passions that I have to make change, to be that catalyst to go, okay, enough's enough. Let's make things happen. Let's help women see themselves on the pages. Let's help women find the things to do. And let's help women have a sense of belonging. For me, it was about my daughters. I wanted my daughters to be able to own their sport participation and know that it's an important part of who they are as human beings, but also as women. Young girls who have parents who participate in sport are far more likely to stay in sport. So again, we know the role that parents play. I'm tired of hearing everybody talking about these barriers. Let's do something about it. Let's make change happen.
I love how you say a catalyst for change, and how your children, being females, you wanted to find that solution for them and for the future. It's that wiser person who 25 years later, there's not much progress. So
that's it.
Do it.
Exactly.
Do it, right?
Yeah. Do something about it. And that's not to diminish the notion that all the research that's coming out, that trends us over years that's important. But at the end of the day, we need to take that research and then turn it to action and do something about it.
A catalyst is somebody who makes things happen faster rather than evolution. Just a little spark plug here or there, right?
To do something before the market is doing it is definitely a challenge, because people are like, well, it's such a big problem. How are you ever going to solve it? How can you, as a startup, now we're a scale up, we're beyond startup. We've been around for 3 years. How can a scale up make an impact when you're just, a scale up? And, the way that we've addressed those challenges, and it's taken us time to build relationships in the marketplace, is to collaborate with our municipalities, collaborate with the sport organizations, collaborate with other associations and local businesses that have the same intent that we do, that share our values. And so now we are not just one, we are many, and collectively our voices are making a big difference. It's amazing, because now these organizations have a platform and the infrastructure that they can leverage to directly communicate with women, and women can directly communicate with them. And now these silos of sports, who, if you play baseball, you're never going to talk to the person who plays hockey. These are all coming down. organizations and municipalities are talking to each other. They're learning from each other. So the little engine that could is making a difference, and we're really thrilled.
I hear the mommy in you. That book, that I don't know how many times I read that book. So I hear your mommy hat on right now.
Well, and Tina has daughters too who also have a passion for sports. So we both have lived in different parts of the world and different communities, and have had to walk the challenge of trying to feel a sense of belonging where we would lay down our heads at night. And we're seeing the importance of that sense of community and the sense of connectedness even more amplified because we actually can't be connected physically as communities right now within the pandemic. And in my opinion, it just amplifies why we need to spend and invest more in the world of sport, because now we really see the value that whether it's arts or sports or community-based activities, what impact they have on quality of life.
I want to touch on that community and how you moved around, but I want to go back to Tina. Caroline, you told us about your passion in your children, and 25 years later, not much has changed. Tina, your story to say, hey, I like this idea, Caroline. Let's do this together. Let's create, see what she can do. So what is your story background that led you to help both of you turn that idea into a startup and now a scale up?
My background was marketing and business launching. So I've had a number of different experiences over my career. Started in sales, went to advertising, moved to marketing, and then eventually opened up my own marketing organization. So my passion is launching things that are going to make a difference in our world. And playing hockey. Hockey was my way to enter into my community. It's how I met people. And it was personal development as well as social development because I couldn't skate. So I got onto the ice, and my daughters were like, Mom, you're the only one in the family that doesn't play hockey. And I'm like, I can't even skate. They're like, and then I remembered back to my oldest daughter getting on the ice for the first time, falling. And then, rushing to the door and opening the door and going, are you okay? And she's like, that was awesome. And I thought, wow, that is a learning moment. So for me, I saw that and I thought, how can I tell my daughters that I can't try something new? And so I did. And, I'm so grateful that I did, because I was in a new community, trying something I couldn't do. The joy of learning new things along with other people is pretty cool. And people were very accepting, and we all, were older than any of our kids ever were getting on the ice. So for me, when we sat down and had coffee the one day, and Caroline, put her idea out there,
so
a couple
Caroline
of things
part
I
of
thought,
this hockey?
Caroline's part of the hockey.
Okay.
Hockey. Yeah.
And would this have happened how many years ago? Just so we were placing this into some context.
2015 or 2016, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
5, 6 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we had been playing for a few years together before we, Caroline kind of brought her idea to our hockey sisters, but I love sport. It was my way to be, feel like I belong someplace. So I saw the value of that. And I also saw the value, investing in women, because we are worth the investment. We have, we make 80% of the purchase decisions in our families. We have disposable income, and we influence our families and our communities. So I thought, not only did it make sense to attack the problem because I love sport and I have girls that I want to make sure experience the benefits of sport, but I also saw the financial benefit of investing in women and the notion of being able to bring businesses on side to support our solution.
Had you guys had entrepreneurial experience before this venture?
Yeah, I mean, my background was very entrepreneurial. So I had my own business at the time. I had launched many different businesses for others. I mean, but entrepreneurial just means that you're ready to tackle new problems you've never experienced before and figure out a way to do it. Any new business that you launch is completely different, and this one was completely different than anything we had done. So learning curve always, all the time.
Yeah. Has that been a theme for you growing up? Always take on a new learning, like the challenge of new learning excites you?
I remember like years and years ago, we called it Diva Night. All the ladies would meet once a month and somebody would host an event, and somebody hosted one over Halloween. It was like a tarot card reader or something. And she's like, I don't understand. Like, you're moving around all the time. You've got all these new jobs. Like, that's the way my brain works. But I grew up in a household. My dad was an entrepreneur. He came to Canada with nothing more than a suitcase and a dream for a better world. And he started his own business, was very successful. We were part of the family business from when we were very young.
What
And
kind of
I
business?
knew it was actually building. It's kind of funny because I didn't realize it till over the last year, but it was building communities. He was a general contractor with very little formal education, and he built communities upon communities. He physically built communities and connected people and gave them a place to come. So yeah, I was wearing the hard hat and the little steel toe boots when I was 5 years old, right up until helping him kind of sell homes later into my teens.
So that's in your blood. What about you, Caroline?
I came out of the business world, but for me, I think my personality of just stepping up and being a part of the solution is really what drives me. I'll put my hand up. I'll be the first to do it. I won't wait till somebody else does it. I'm really kind of a problem solver, generally speaking. And it's what I tell my kids, just solve the problem. Don't worry, just take one step at a time.
She also brings community together. This woman, I think, what's the number up in your community parties? Although it has been over a year, like 150 people you have on your street party.
I
like,
think,
it's crazy.
Over our neighborhood street party, we've certainly hit over 200. But, to me, honestly, having lived in so many different places, I really do appreciate and I'm grateful for being able to know the people around me. And even if it just means being able to say hello, acknowledge that they're there and they acknowledge that I'm there, I really do find when we can see ourselves in each other, it really does create an amazing experience for all of us. It's the endorphins. It's the physiological, this is great. I'm with somebody, even though I'm not with them. I get to say hello to them every day. And it's just so, so important. And I do think it's an important part of how we build that resiliency, when the times are tough. If you don't feel like you're by yourself, then you got your peeps around you, even though they may not be physically beside you. I think there's a lot to be said for that.
I think it's interesting because as entrepreneurs, you guys are very positive and you look at solutions. I mean, there's lots of people when they hear something, a change, all of a sudden there's barriers. We can't do that because of this. And when you give them a solution, there's another barrier and even more barriers. And see what she can do. And I think that comment is like, don't look at why you can't do this. Look at that question about, so what will it take for this to happen? And that diverts the energy of can't do it because of this or this, right?
Yeah. Like to be centered, knowing that it will work out in some way or another. It may not look the way it looks today. It may not look the way you want it to look, but both Caroline and I are grounded in our, whether it's, you want to call it spirituality or faith or whatever, we're grounded in knowing that things are going to be okay. Things are going to work out. There is a shift. Like if you physically really truly believe that life is going to work out, then when you face a challenge, even if it's devastating, even if it's terrible, you have this underlying, I don't know what's happening right now, and things seem to be a bit out of control, but it will end up where it's supposed to end up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I want to take us back to comments that you made earlier. It has to do with we've been in around. So just hold that thought as I explain, because I think when people have only known one community and they get into a rhythm and comfort zone, that makes them think that way. When people have moved around, whether they were an army brat or whether they followed their spouse or they had this lust for travel, I think that helps broaden your perspective, gives you a way of thinking of life in a totally different way than if you've only experienced one way of doing things. So I want you both to share your experience. And if you don't mind, just share where you've been, because some of you have been living in different places, working and not working. So Caroline, do you want to go first? And then Tina, you can share.
Sure. So I had the good fortune to follow my husband through his career. It provided us opportunity to move around it throughout North America. So I got to experience Western Canada by living in Calgary, Alberta. I had the opportunity to live in the Midwest of the United States by living just outside of Chicago. I had the opportunity to live in the Mid-Atlantic region of the United States by living in Dover, Delaware. And then obviously I lived in multiple communities, or not obviously, but I lived in multiple communities as a student and a professional. So whether it was Kingston or Waterloo or Toronto, So big city, small city, big town, small town, Midwest, Western Canada, all of that. And I find that each community had its own particular nuances, its own particular way of doing things. But ultimately, everywhere we went, we always met great people. I do believe that what you give out is what you get back. I always try to go into new communities with an open heart, an open mind that's full of curiosity. I know you mentioned that earlier. For me, I have a drive to know. I have a drive to be curious and to know others and to sort of dive into life. It allowed me to see the different ways. Like, interestingly, I would say Western Canada and Western United States are probably more similar than, Western Canada and Eastern Canada. So it was interesting living that for a bit. But for Tina's experience was even more exotic, shall we say.
Yeah, we'll let her share that one with us after.
So yeah, I think it's really about having the opportunity to gain different perspectives, gain different just ways of doing things, and knowing that you don't always have to kind of be tied to what you think the right way is. It can change over time, and what was right when you were 25 may not be right for you at 35 or even 26. In order to be true to yourself, you really have to allow yourself that ability to be self-aware, self-reflective, and know that it's that journey that we're on. Like, we all have our goals and we all have our things that we want to have in our life, but sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay. And if you're willing to be open to that, then it's amazing. Then you really do allow yourself to gain a full sense of self.
Your positive attitude, because you basically were on the move many times in your life, and you became more. The word resilient sounds like it's a struggle sometimes. I think for you, it wasn't a struggle. It was that challenge, a challenge in a positive way, a new opportunity. I grew up in Toronto. There are not many of us that are, especially at my age, but I grew up in Toronto. So we're a minority, so to speak. Up until I was like 25, that was my way of life. I knew Toronto. I knew the culture. I knew people. And my husband came from Windsor. So he was a little bit more flexible. Windsor to Toronto, one move. When we moved to Calgary, like as you said, Caroline, there is a difference between Eastern Canada and Western Canada. We were called Weekenders at the time because I was during the time when Ralph was the mayor there. But what I learned from my experience in Calgary was it opened me up to not being Toronto-centric, which we've been accused of many times before, but in understanding Western Canada, my eyes opened to BC, to the Atlantic provinces, to Quebec. And I felt that was such a rich experience to just open my mind to possibilities. Just by living in one other place, And so I'm going to now ask Tina, because you have an exotic place that you live.
It sounds very interesting. I mean, interestingly enough, my parents were a great example of picking up, leaving Italy and coming here. I mean, I remember my aunt telling me stories of their entire family living in a home with like one burner in their kitchen, right? They didn't know what they were going to be experiencing. They didn't know the language. They were not that well educated. Like, it was a tough go. And I saw that they all did it. And what brought them through was community. So, so that was a great influence on my background. Through university, I went and I lived in Quebec for a couple of summers. That was kind of my first entry into, experiencing different cultures, different language. I'm a language buff. I love language, all different kinds of languages. The biggest shift for me came when we got an offer. My husband works at Honda. We got an offer to move out to Japan. And it was like, wow, like it was mind shifting. And, we considered it long and hard because it's far away. Our parents are far. We had young kids, and we were going to move, and we didn't know anybody but each other. And the amazing thing about moving to someplace that's so completely different, that has like nothing in common with where you live other than that people are people, was that it really forces you to rethink who you are as a person, what you want in life. I mean, I went there, I had been working in marketing, I had some big jobs, I was burnt out, and I got there and not a single person asked me what I did for a living. And at first it was like, wow, this is so weird, but like people were interested in me for who I was. I wasn't defined by my work, so who was I now? And so I had to figure that out. I intentionally lived in a community where it was only Japanese people. So I had to learn the language. I had to figure out how to grocery shop. I can't read any labels, turn on your toilet, which is completely different from even our toilets here.
It's luxury sometimes.
It's luxury. It's beautiful. But my daughter was pushing buttons and there's water spraying across the house. And it's cool because that uncomfortableness, there's a little bit of, stressful as it can be when you're in it. But for me, there's a little bit of an adrenaline rush, right? Like I had to learn a new language. I had to learn how to grocery shop. I had to learn how to call 911. Like, how do I tell people to come to my house when I can barely speak the language? And overall, what I saw were some expats when they came in, left right away. And they left right away because it was like, this is not the same as where I live. Yeah. So I can't be here. Whereas, the best advice I got from my dad going was like, go and live the way the Japanese live, absorb it, be there, and don't worry about like living in an expat community. And so what that forced us to do was to basically learn to live there. And like Caroline said, like you said as well, it's adaptability. It's the ability to take on new challenges that you didn't think you could do. And we loved it. We thrived in it. I wish I had been there. We had to come home about 6 or 7 months early. I wish I'd been there another 7 months because, I was just learning the language. I mean, it takes a long time to learn Japanese, and Honda was fantastic about giving us a sensei to learn the language and help with culture. If I had another 6 or 7 months, I would have been like, totally grabbed that language. But I mean, it was great. So I think adaptability, language, and I think the desire to want to learn. And I thrive on trying new things. So it was good. It was fun.
And I just to jump on just real quick, and I do think it really shows you, we think of people being different, but we are really very similar. And
we are the same
in life. We all, whether we're green, blue, red, or orange, we all want the best for our families. We all want to have healthy lives. We all want to try and be our best. Whatever that means to you is up to you. Having the opportunity, like all of us have had, as much as we see differences,
we see the same.
To your point, Hilda, it really does expand your perspective.
Yeah, it does.
You're that
even hearing, I have to tell you, hearing like 2-year-olds have a temper tantrum. I couldn't understand what they were saying, but they sounded like my kids. So I'm like, we live on the other side of the world. Things are different, but we're the same. Like our kids are having temper tantrums. Women are concerned about, having lost weight after having kids. I mean, they're tiny, and we're the same, yet we're different. And that's what's amazing about it.
And I think the richness of life and keeping your eyes wide open and embracing it really gives you that richness. I've been to Japan a few times, and my son and I voluntold maybe, to take Japanese. So we took it, and it was just before the reactor that went off.
Oh, yeah.
And so we had to hold off for a couple of years. So we had to dust off the rustiness. But I remember keeping the numbers straight. Like I would practice the numbers in the car and things. So one time we were at this big restaurant. We were in a museum, and then there was a restaurant that we wanted to go to, but there was a lineup. And he's talking about, names. So Finelli-san, Wiley-san is good, but Gan-san is very hard to catch because there's only one syllable.
Yeah.
How am I going to know when they're calling me? And then I remember I could hear the numbers. Oh, they're calling numbers. They're calling numbers. Okay, so we're number this. So I kept listening for the numbers. I thank God, because in the Japanese language, Tina, and I know this, is that their structure is not like ours. Mm-hmm. The actual action verb is at the end. Mm-hmm. So they'll say blue sky, going to go sunny today.
Yeah.
Going, so how am I supposed to learn the translation? So it isn't the way I normally think. So it's harder. And I knew that I wouldn't be able to catch that, but I did learn my numbers and how to say hello and goodbye. Arigato gozaimasu, things like that. So we know that you guys are a sense of community, and we know that you have open hearts, open minds, and you decide in sports. Now, Caroline, you haven't told us what the sport is. What is your sport?
Oh, I have a lot of different sports. I love to watch sport. I grew up watching hockey, but like Tina, I didn't play it. I did a lot of skating, public skating, and skating on the Credit River where I grew up, but I never played organized hockey. So for me, it was something I always wanted to try and do. So that's how Tina and I met, like Tina mentioned earlier. I love anything with a racket and a ball, or golf, tennis, pickleball, you name it, I can do it, or at least try to do it.
She can do it.
Okay.
Yeah,
she can. See what she can do.
See what she can do. Exactly.
Yeah. I love the movement of our bodies as we're trying to hit something. Like I love strategic games. I played squash and I used to teach squash. And so the exciting part about teaching squash was helping people understand the why behind what you do. Like it's not just about hitting the ball, but it's understanding how you stand relative to the person you're playing against, you move in this small square, in a small contained space to be able to win the point. And so for me, again, problem solving, strategy, that's just my happy place. That's the type of sport I love to do.
Okay, so did you teach people to be aggressive and be at the tee?
You know what? I taught people to be smart.
Okay, because I kept remembering, be at the tee, be at the tee.
Well, and being at the tee is where you want to be, but you want to get your opponent away from the tee.
I know.
Then they have to work harder. That's right.
We call that in hockey. Our coach gave us the big butt drill where you stick your butt out, you push it back.
I'm feeling my butt move right now. Thank you.
Own your space.
Exactly. Talk about owning your space. You're helping women to really reclaim the power of sport in their life. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
When you pull the trigger off after that coffee and say, hey, I'm in, okay. What were some of the challenges that you had to face initially? What are some of those early challenges?
Well, I'll jump in here and then Caroline, maybe you can add to it too. Early on, it was such a big problem. It was, how do you attack it in a way that's going to make a difference? You can't be everything to everybody. So, which audience are you going to talk to? Which problem are you going to solve first? Conceptualizing. Caroline's idea originally was a magazine. As we started to talk more around the notion of community and bringing that together, we felt digital platform would, have more longevity and bigger ways to connect people. So it was kind of taking the idea of solving the problem, conceptualizing it to what the output's going to be, and then bringing the right team on board to help us build it. And we had early challenges with developers, not bringing to the table what they said they were going to bring to the table. And so we eventually, and it's quite common for people who are in the world of technology, building technology infrastructures to experience kind of what we did. So it was like, this is our vision. This is what we want it to be. This is our budget. This is our timeline. All of it blew out the window. We ended up bringing in a more trusted team of developers because our product is the technology and you need a trusted team to help you deliver against your vision. So probably our early challenges early on were determining what we were going to build, who the audience was, and having the right team in place. And, it eventually all came to place, but those were some of the early hurdles that we worked through.
Yeah, and I think, for me, being more of a visionary person, Tina's really tried to help me understand how to sort of break things down and allow ourselves to have the success in our action by breaking it down into steps and to sort of understand, the nitty gritty of things and being able to ask those questions. I think for me, that was a big challenge because I had these great ideas, but it's one thing to have great ideas, but to actually make it work and execute it so that people appreciate what it is, that value equation you're trying to deliver on. That's an easier said than done experience. And so we've had to go through a lot of challenges to understand what that means, right? And obviously with COVID and, we've had to pivot to understand, okay, how are we going to deliver on our value equation and what it is that we're promising to deliver to active women through our platform and through our community and the services we provide. So I would say being able to have those constant conversations and communications with not only with ourselves and our team and our developers, but with our customers, if you will, as well. To really,
the big challenge with COVID is like when you're a sport organization and sport shuts down, and honestly, like everybody was like, what do we do? Like the entire industry, right? And I think once the dust settled and everybody got a chance to breathe, we, like as Caroline said earlier, start to see the value of community and the value of sport beyond the sport itself. And for us, even just movement, it was eye-opening and it was actually game-changing for us because what it enabled us to do was to dig deeper than the actual sport. Like ice hockey isn't just ice hockey, or hiking in the forest isn't just the hike. It's what you get when you're there. It's the community. It's how you feel. It's your emotional, physical, health and mental health, even all of that together, right? So COVID was, has obviously been tough for the industry as a whole, but what we're starting to see is the ability to still bring people together is at the essence, the most important part of it all.
The other challenge I think is, there are fairly good sized silos around different sports. Mm-hmm. And for us, we really wanted to be able to create a place where we can hopefully remove them, but certainly lessen them.
Yeah.
and help people understand that you can share best practices, whether you're in the world of softball or whether you're in the world of dance, because at its core, you're helping people feed their soul and feed their passions. And so we really are delivering similar services. And so if we start to see ourselves again in that sense of similarity, then all of a sudden we can find solutions together. And we can say, well, this has been my experience within this context. What's been your experience? And then how do we leverage that knowledge base to come up with better solutions to the challenges that we all face in the world of sport and rec?
I think you've brought up some really interesting things. Is that you started with mission, vision, and value, and that's a passion of mine. Every business should start off understanding their core values, what their goal is, and why they're doing it, because that creates the foundation that everything flows from. The people that will be your clients, in your case, women who are interested in the sport world and advocating and being part of that. And then it also looks at the kind of people that you might align with, that share your similar values, whether they're partners, associates, or even employees. So having that fundamental builds on the operations, the clients, the HR, the whole thing. So that's passionate for me. The second thing I hear is you started something, but as you got into COVID and just thinking of things, that deep-rooted sense of community, didn't want those silos. And I liken it to when I was the chair of a board of women entrepreneurs, Grow Your Biz, in fact. And one person said, I'm in the spa industry. Why would I sit around this table with all these different people? Why shouldn't I be in an industry with my like to learn? Well, first of all, some of you don't want to share trade secrets. But second of all, imagine what you learn from ringette, the way it goes, or ballet, or, my passion, ballet or basketball or hockey. There are similarities. And what I heard you say, it's all in the end is about a movement that makes and feeds your soul and makes you healthy. And I think during COVID, there's so much lack of touch and feel and sense of community. We have to find it in different ways. And you went beyond the start of the company to the why, and how you can help, and bringing in your strong passion for community and your positive drive. So let's talk about some of those successes. What were some of your key successes?
Well, I think
keep your horn now, ladies.
Yeah. Well, I think certainly we've done a great job. I have to say we've done some, just along the way, we've tried to talk to our community. And one comment that spoke to me in a survey that we sent out was that See What She Can Do has been a breath of fresh air in this time of COVID. And so for me, that's just like, that's all right. We've done our best job. I'm good with that. I can take that.
Great testimonial, right?
Yeah, right. Because I think at the end of the day, we do need those moments of fresh air. I mean, what do we do when it's springtime and it's clean out the house? Open up the windows and let in fresh air. And so for me, that's been a big personal reward for me. Tina, maybe I'll let you address that.
Yeah, I do think like a few, physical things too, building the infrastructure that allows all of our communities and all of our women in any community to participate. Like that's a big feat. We're evolving continuously from a community standpoint to make sure that not only do the women feel like they belong, but they're supporters. So, 75% female, 25% male. The partnerships, we've got some really great partnerships with all different types of organizations, from municipalities to media organizations to small businesses, sport associations, and organizations that are locally driven, but also, municipally and provincially and Canada-wide. And we've even got some global participation. And then I do think there's a few other things. Just launched our new women's circles, which we know with COVID that women have been really hard hit. It's hard to be a mom in charge of the household, a teacher, and work, and all those other things that come with it. And we really wanted to find a way to help women feel a little less alone and more together. So we've launched these 3 women's circles as a starting point. They're going to expand well beyond that have really helped women kind of gather based on their interests and just have some fun. We have our Women and Dog Circle, which is for if you have a dog and you just want to have some fun. We've had 2 sessions already with our Women and Dog Circle, and we've got women from all across York region and a few from Simcoe region, some coming in even from Durham, to just have fun with their dogs. Like, we did agility last night online. So we have our expert Corey McCusker is showing people how to do agility at home in their backyards with their dogs and get their bodies moving that way. And then we have another circle actually tonight, our Paramazing Circle for anybody who loves parasport. Wednesday night.
Yeah.
That loves parasport. And we also have our Women Coaches Circle for anybody that loves to lead. And this isn't even just cross sport, it's actually cross community, which is really, really very powerful and very fun. And then we've integrated some augmented reality experiences within our communities. So right now, if you're on the trails in Aurora, for instance, you'll see signage like the one that's behind me here on posts. And if you hover over it with your Snapped Hub app, there'll be a video inviting you to join us, but there's also links to community resources, trail maps. You've got messages from the mayor. We're going beyond our platform and incorporating other technologies to bring that in-person feeling into the communities as well. So that's another initiative that's we're, a couple of weeks into that we're experiencing some great successes with.
Cool. Now people are going to wonder, where does the money come to sustain this? Do you charge the women? Do you get sponsors, grants? I'm sure people are wondering, how does this happen? Thank you very much, but how are you surviving otherwise?
Yeah, it's a great question.
That's one big challenge we have right now, because a lot of what we've been doing has been bootstrapped by ourselves. And obviously that can only go so long. So part of it is finding partners who can be strategic in execution and investment. The other opportunity is through creating new products and services that we can sell through our marketplace. So we're in the midst of creating some new products that leverage the assets that we have in the photography that we shoot. We've just launched some new notebooks that have really amazing photography on them. And then the other part, one of the challenges we face right now, quite honestly, is in the world of sport, and in particular, I would argue in the world of women-centric programs in terms of government funding. I would say I'd love to be able to challenge the government at all levels to embrace the private sector in who they encompass as being eligible to access investment funds. Research and development, new programs. There was a new program to help women and marginalized women that was offered through the federal government just a couple months ago or last month. And unfortunately, they limited the eligibility to access those funds to strictly not-for-profit organizations. And while not-for-profit organizations have done a tremendous job supporting women of all stripes and sizes, I think it's our challenge to understand, how do we embrace the private sector in the world of not only sport and recreation, but in growing investment in women? Because I think we're doing women a disservice when all we ever do is say only companies that are not for profit can access the funds, development funds. In my mind, I say, think of it in terms of telecommunications. Where do you think we would be in the world of telecommunications if we had said, okay, only companies that are not for profit can access growing funds or development funds? Where would we be today? I don't think we would be at that same place. So in my mind, I think we just have to appreciate the value that the private sector, and certainly for us, we define ourselves as a social enterprise, what value we bring to building the assets, the infrastructure, and really the progression and the progressiveness that's needed to be able to really grow the investment in women and the success of women in society all across the board. I think we have to stop looking at women as charitable and understand that we are an investment. And I would say, I would challenge women to think that, I would challenge men to think that, and I would challenge business operators to do that, because I think we're not there yet. And you know what? It holds us back. I mean, we've made a conscious decision to invest our own money in women because we believe it's right. We're women, and we believe investing in ourselves makes sense, and investing in our daughters.
The other piece, I think, to jump to back to one of your earlier questions, Hilda, was our platform is free for women to join. and their supporters. Our revenue model is to grow our ecosystem of businesses and bring value to them so that they can connect with each other and be successful. One piece of our revenue is that we have what we call our athlete advisor, which is our online business directory. And that is a place where businesses can come, they can claim space within our virtual community. And that's the place where they can share content, they can share promotions, they can share their expertise, and they can reach the women in our audience and in our membership with valuable solutions that are right for them. So what we tend to see is the businesses that come on board have have an interest in women and an interest in women in sport or active women who move. And so our business directory is really a place where, we have a business, our ecosystem grows. We're looking for foundational partners to help support things like our podcast, See What She Can Do conversations, like our women's circles, whether that's in kind or whether that's through revenue sharing or through marketing programs that we put out there to bring attention to local businesses, because we believe local is important and we want to support our local organizations.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
And I think just to build on that, I think it really is trying to allow the local companies to reach the women in their communities directly.
Yeah.
I noticed you mentioned, places in Ontario. So is that your space right now, or is it broader than that?
We are Canada-wide.
Okay,
go ahead.
Canada-wide. Hear that, everybody?
I was just going to say,
Canada-wide.
yeah. We're actually, quite honestly, we're worldwide in the sense that everybody's on the internet.
Yes.
From a digital standpoint, and we've been fortunate enough to work with others across the world.
We just interviewed somebody from Austria. She is a best-selling author on our podcast, and her episode will be released. It may be released this morning. It'll be released in the next couple of days. So we have had our first international podcast guest.
Yay.
And it's the power of having a digital platform. You can, and doing this, what we're doing right now, right? You can do this anywhere. You can do this, with me sitting here and somebody sitting in Austria.
I believe Silken Lawman was one of your podcasts.
Silken Lawman has been one of our guests, and we are aiming to try to get her podcast up soon too. Yep.
Yeah. That I'm going to love listening to that one. I watched her in her height of her career.
Yeah, she's a pretty impressive young person. But certainly from a strategic standpoint, in terms of building relationships, we're both based out of Aurora. So our main focus from a scale-up perspective is within the Greater Toronto area, but we're always certainly open to new partnerships across Canada.
I have enjoyed chatting with you. You've given us some richness as entrepreneurs to think about in our own journey. So Caroline and Tina, thank you very much for joining me today. Tell us how we get a hold of you.
You can get a hold of us. Oh, sorry, Tina.
1, 2, 3. SeeWhatSheCanDo.com.
SeeWhatSheCanDo.com.
We're both on LinkedIn. You can email me if you want, Tina at SeeWhatSheCanDo.com or Caroline at SeeWhatSheCanDo.com. Pretty easy to get a hold of us.
Yeah, we're all on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. So certainly give us a follow and reach out. We'd love to meet you and chat with you.
Good. You mentioned your podcast. So does that have a special place for it if you want to share?
You can find our podcast on our website as well. There's a little icon at the bottom of our website that has a little podcast microphone. You can listen to us on any podcast platform. We're out there. It's See What She Can Do. So just all one word, See What She Can Do. We have a few episodes and some really great guests on those, which Hilda Gann is one of our guests. So you can listen to Hilda as she talks about the impact of sport on your career.
Thank you. So thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Tina, for coming on today and sharing your journey and some of the exciting things that made you who you are and doing what you want to do to help women in the field of sports and to keep moving, to really keep moving, because it's so beneficial. I'd also like to thank my team. The production studio of Six Story is my producers. They do a great job, as well as my team back at People Bright Consulting. If you like this podcast, these amazing women, comment and subscribe. There are so many other people that have a richness of background and diversity, and they're here to tell you their successes and struggles along the way. So if you like listening to stories and you're an entrepreneur, check Rev Up Your Potential. Thank you very much. And to those who are listening, thank you for taking the time and sharing some of your time to listen to this. I hope you success in your journey. Thank you again, Caroline and Tina. It was a delight for me to have this time with you.
Thank you
for having us. It's been great to be here, Hilda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us in this episode. If you're new to Rev Up Your Potential, please visit our website at www.revupyourpotential.ca. There you will find more podcast episodes, videos, and a growing collection of resources to help you rev up your potential. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.